Hey guys, so we're starting a new series called Cafeteria Christianity. Yes, there's a reason why I have this, and no, I did not steal it from one of your schools. We have some here at church, promise. Um, and we're talking about how we as a culture love to be able to pick and choose the things that we want, right? And even sometimes wait for something better to come along. It's all about us being able to make choices and leave our options open, right? We love it. It's something that we do. You know, we love watching TV. We hate watching commercials. We love Netflix and Hulu now. We love watching YouTube. We can just pick whatever we want and not watch the stuff we don't want. We do it with all of our food. And I think that translates sometimes to how we deal with our relationship with our spirituality, right? Regardless of where people are, if they believe in Jesus or they don't. That's how a lot of us operate in the realm of spirituality because it permeates every other area of our life too. So there's a problem with that though when it comes to our spirituality, because if there is an absolute truth, if there is something that is completely right and we say, you know what, I don't want to believe in that, or I'm going to keep my options open, or we just pick and choose what we want, we might be missing who God really is, right? We can say, well, I don't really like the idea of God like judging us or being mad at us if we sin, or like, you know, him like not wanting me to do something that I want to do. So I'm not going to put that on my tray. Like, that's not something I want. But like the idea that when I do mess up, that God forgives me and it's super easy and I don't have to do anything for it. Like, I love that. Like, I'm going to put that on there like a big pile of like pudding, and I'm just going to eat it up because it's amazing, right? We do that with our spirituality, but it's really dangerous, right? We can miss out on who God really is. Right, and we could miss out on truths. We could miss out on things that could help shape our lives and make them better by just picking and choosing what feels comfortable to us. So we're going to talk about, through this series, some things that we have to believe as, if we want to say that we're followers of Jesus, some things that are kind of almost non-negotiable, right? And there's a bunch of other stuff in between, but here's the biggest one for me. This is from John chapter 14, verses 6 through 7. Jesus responding to a question. He says, I am the way, yes, the truth, and the life. No one can get to the Father except by means of me. If you had known who I am, then you would have known who my Father is. From now on you know him, and you have seen him. So Jesus there is making a pretty clear statement, even though it's kind of in weird grammatical stuff there for us, but Jesus is saying, I'm God here in the flesh. You see me, you see God, right? And Jesus says, I am the only way. He didn't say there's some other way, that there are a bunch of other ways, and he's just one of them. He says he is the only way to God, right? And if he says this, I believe it's true, because not just because he said it, but because he died and came back to life. He did all of the things that the Old Testament said that the Messiah would do, way more things than anyone could possibly accomplish, even if they were trying to do it, and they weren't really, the Son of God and God's chosen Messiah. You couldn't pull that off, right? Like, he couldn't control where he was born. Jesus did all these amazing things, all these miracles, but most of all, he came back to life, right? To show us that death has been defeated, that the weight of sin is no longer on us, right? And if we want to say that we're Christians, like that can't be something that we can negotiate and say, you know what, I don't want to put that on my plate, right? Like, Jesus died a death, but he came back to life. Right? There are a bunch of creeds that are in, if you look in front of the hymnal or something, there's a bunch of these creeds that are written. And the reason they were written is because people were kind of doing this even back then, hundreds of years after Jesus. They were still kind of figuring out what they thought Christianity was. And some of them made up some kind of crazy stuff, right? Some people said, well, Jesus didn't really come back to life. Like, he was just a ghost, or like the disciples missed him so much that they just kind of like dreamed him all up, and it was kind of like this group like hallucination. Not true, right? Like, if Jesus didn't come back to life, why were those guys willing to die for saying that he did come back to life? And why did a bunch of other people follow them? I think other people would have been able to notice, hey, these guys are crazy and we're not following him, right? I don't buy that for a second. So we need to be careful on what we choose to believe and not believe. And we talked about this big word called orthodoxy. And everybody's like, isn't that a religion? Yes, the Eastern Orthodox Church does it, and we don't even have time to get into all of that. But the word orthodox means this: a widely held, tested, and approved form of beliefs, right? That could be anything. It's not just religious stuff. It's not just Christianity, right? Like you can have an unorthodox basketball shot where you shoot like a granny. Like that's not how you're supposed to do it, but you could do it if you make it, right? I saw a college dude who did it this year with his free throws. Weird. But anyway, right? So unorthodox is just something that's different. And orthodox means that everyone kind of agrees this is right. This is something we should do. And Christianity has a bunch of different stuff in between on some spectrums. But again, there are some things that people who really do love Jesus and follow him, we all kind of believe the same thing, and Jesus coming back from the dead is one of them. Read through the Apostles' Creed. It's an amazing document that the church worked really hard on to kind of dispel some of the stuff that people were making up. So check that out. And one last Bible verse for us for this week. Ephesians chapter 4, verses 5 through 6. For there is only one Lord, one faith, one baptism, and all have the same God and Father who is over us all and in us all and living through every part of us. Right? We can disagree on when to get baptized, how to baptize people, but there's one thing that we agree on, that Jesus is the Lord. There's only one God. He created all of us. He loves all of us. Jesus died for all of us. We have to accept him. Jesus is the only way to God. We all need to work on that together and think about the things we believe and think if we can trust that, because if we can't start there and say, Jesus, I believe you're Lord and I believe you came back to life, I believe you died, I believe you did everything you said you came to do, then that other stuff that sometimes trips us up doesn't really matter, right? So let's start focusing on some of the main things and really being willing to take in some of the stuff that maybe we don't like necessarily as much, like our spiritual broccoli. We'll start talking about some of those in the next couple of weeks. Love you guys. Take care.